I would like to welcome you to Black August Los Angeles. Black August Los Angeles is commemorating our Black August, which is from August the 1st through August the 31st. This is our closing night, and we are continuing the tradition of resistance until victory is won. And what that means, resistance means to stand up against injustice. As Martin Luther King said, it is a refusal to cooperate with injustice. It is for this reason that many of our sisters and brothers are dead, in prison, or in exile. We have many sisters and brothers I should say, we have folks who have been buried up under the prisons in solitary confinement for over 40 years. Some have died in prison. And the primary reason for that is because they refuse to cooperate with injustice. We here for Black August LA are commemorating and acknowledging all those sisters and brothers who gave their lives, their time, and their energy to the upliftment and the freedom of our people. Black August is also a time for healing, restoration, and affirming our dedication to remember all of those who have given their lives for freedom and the liberation of our people. I want to to remind people that where we are right now, a lot of us forget that somebody paid a price. Many people are living very comfortably because of the sacrifices that our comrades, our sisters and brothers have made. We want to always remember them. And this month, Black August is dedicated to remembering them in whatever way we do remember them. And one of the ways that we do it with Black August is from the 1st to the 31st, we fast, and we also acknowledge all those, again, who have made those sacrifices. We make a recommitment to continue to stand for truth and justice and to never cooperate, again, with injustice. The current system that we live under, the white racist America right now, has done everything in a lot of cases to try and break these brothers and sisters that are in, particularly in solitary confinement, and they have not been able to do it. The fact that they're still standing, the fact that they refuse to cooperate is a reason for us to always acknowledge them. So we're opening now this ceremony where we commemorate and acknowledge again all those who have made those sacrifices, some who are no longer with us today, those who are still in prison, those who are up under the prisons, as well as those who are in political exile. So that's what, that we're welcoming you to this program today to commemorate with us and celebrate, not celebrate, but to commemorate and acknowledge the lives of all those who've made that commitment. Gonna move right on to, because we don't never wanna start without giving acknowledgement to our ancestors and calling them in and welcoming them in to join us, to stand with us as we continue this struggle until victory is won. So we have with us Lorenzo Frank from Christ Unity, that's going to lead us in a libation where we give acknowledgement again to our ancestors.
Ashe, give thanks, Sister Sada. We are an African people, and we cannot do anything of any significance without honoring, without paying homage to, and without welcoming the ancestors into this space. So we're going to ask that if you're able to stand for the pouring of libations. Ashe. So we pour libations to that first ancestor, to that God, goddess idea in the universe, to that hidden one who, although hidden, manifests in all things as all things. So to that first ancestor, we pour libation and we say Ashe.
Ashe.
And we pour libation to those ancestors of the African interior, the first men and women on the planet, the mothers and fathers of all humanity. So to those ancestors, we pour libation and we say Ashe.
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 We pour libation to the Black woman, the genesis of all humanity, to the first human being. So to the Black woman, we pour libation and we say Ashe.
Ashe.
And we pour libation to those ancestors of the African interior who knew that there was a need for governance. And they created the first civilizations. And they developed it to its highest culture that reached its zenith in Kemet. So to those ancestors, we pour libation and we say Ashe.
Ashe.
And we pour libation to those ancestors who one day took a long and mighty walk. And they peopled the planet. They met themselves coming and going. So to those mighty ancestors who came before Columbus, who came before Magellan, to those ancestors that they don't teach you about in school, to those mighty explorers, we pour libation and we say Ashe.
Ashe.
And we pour libation to those ancestors who wrote on the temples and tombs. They wrote the Medunetta, words of God. The Europeans call it hieroglyphics. But they wrote these on the temples and tombs so that we may never forget. So to those mighty ancestors, we pour libation and we say Ashe.
Ashe.
And we pour libation to those ancestors who one day found themselves kidnapped, shackled and cargoed, enslaved throughout the diaspora. To those ancestors who killed and was killed before they would lose their freedom. To those ancestors that jumped ship before they would become slaves, and the bones of those brave souls still line the ocean floor. So to those mighty ancestors, we pour libation and we say Ashe.
Ashe.
And we pour libation to those ancestors who once they reached these shores, they resisted, they agitated, they resisted, they put glass in masses grits. So to those mighty ancestors, we pour libation and we say Ashe.
Ashe.
And we pour libation to those ancestors who began to piece themselves back together, who began to hear pieces of their language, beats on a drum, words from a song, and they became the new Africans, the new Jalila. So to those mighty ancestors, we pour libation and we say Ashe.
Ashe.
And we pour libation to those freedom fighters, to those warriors who fought and died for our freedom and our liberation, to those ancestors like Hannibal, Ashe, like Shaka Zulu, Ashe, like Queen Ya Asantewa, Ashe, for those ancestors like Queen Hatshepsut, Ashe, to those ancestors like Fannie Lou Hamer, like Ella Baker, Ashe, like Nat Turner, Ashe, like Harriet Tubman, Ashe, like Sojourner Truth, Ashe, like Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, Ashe, like Fred Hampton, Ashe, like Khalid Muhammad, Ashe, like Malcolm X, Ashe, like MLK and Frederick Douglass, Ashe, like those ancestors like George Jackson and Jonathan Jackson and Peter Drumgo, to those mighty ancestors, to all the ancestors that represent Black August, for our freedom and our liberation, we pour libation and we say, Ashe. And we pour libation to all of those that are listening to the sound of my voice, to all of us who continue to fight for our freedom and our liberation, who continue to carry the torch of our ancestors and our elders whose shoulders that we stand on. We stand on the shoulders of giants. and we will continue to fight for our freedom and liberation. So to all of us that will continue this fight, we pour libation and we say Ashe. And we pour libation to our children, our cultural heirs, to those African babies that will continue the fight when we are gone, that will continue our legacy. Is in their DNA. So to those children, we pour libation and we say Ashe. And to their children, Ashe. And to their children, Ashe. And to their children, Ashe, Ashe. Give thanks. Ashe.
Okay, Lorenzo, you need to stop your video. Lorenzo. Okay. Hello?
Go ahead, Asada.
Okay, all right. Thank you, brother Lorenzo. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. We give thanks to the ancestors, and we thank you, brother Lorenzo, for that beautiful libation as we welcome our ancestors in to join us. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do an overview of Black August. We have brother G2 Siddiqui, who has been a long time committed warrior in terms of fighting for the rights of not just political prisoners, but prisoners in general, our people who have been locked back behind bars. And he's going to give you some history about Black August, its meaning, and give you a better understanding of why, you know, we do this every single year and why we continue to stand for our sisters and brothers that are locked behind walls and in political exile. Brother G2.
Weusi Agosti Salamu. Weusi Agosti Salamu is Swahili interpretation of Black August greetings. I want to thank Lorenzo for all of the ancestors that he shared with us in terms of those that have been fighting, struggling for centuries for the liberation of African people. One of the things that happened during the 70s, actually started in the late 60s, or in the 60s, leading up to a combination of events that took place during the 70s. And that was conditions that existed within California prisons where brothers had to challenge the system, not only the state, but also wayward prisoners. And I say wayward prisoners, you had those that were racist based on the conditions that exist there, and those that were confused, those that supported the racists. So we had to endure those conditions where brothers lost their lives. They had to take a stand and fight against that racism. There were several events that took place that laid the foundation for what we commemorate today as Black August. And we start with an incident that happened, although this wasn't the first incident, but it was an incident that led to all of these, this domino effect. And that was when in Soledad Prison, January 13, 1970, was the first time that they integrated the exercise yard in solitary confinement, security housing unit, which was infamously known as O-Wing. When they integrated that yard, the day that they integrated, they had the intentions on murdering several, or at least one brother in particular, who they had a lot of enmity for, meaning the staff and the prisoners. They had tried to get this brother many times prior to that, and he always came up successful. His name was W.L. Nolan. When they integrated the yard, they started letting prisoners out, supposedly one by race, until they got the number of prisoners that were going to the yard that day. They actually let out more white prisoners than they did black. So by the time that a few of them got to the yard, there was a fight that started. In that fight, a white boy attacked WL, who he fought, and the gun tower guard shot twice. He shot a kill shot that hit WL, and another shot from an M14 rifle that grazed or the ricocheted and hit the white dude, but it wasn't a deadly shot. After he shot WL, two other brothers who were on the yard at the time, Cleveland Edwards and Albert Miller, went over to assist WL. And when they went over to assist him, they also was shot, which was a kill shot. So on that day, January 13th, 1970, three brothers lost their life. They didn't give them any immediate medical attention, and either the bullet immediately killed them or they bled to death. The case went before a grand jury in Salinas County, and they found that the shooting was justifiable. So the guard wasn't charged with the shooting. Approximately 2 weeks after that, a guard was murdered in another part of Soledad Prison. And the result of it was that three brothers was charged with that guard's murder. Those three brothers was Fleeta Drumgo, John Clichette, and George Jackson. The notoriety around the killing and them being charged with that killing led to a transfer in venue, a change in venue from Salinas County to Marin County. And those three brothers were transferred to San Quentin Prison in Marin County. Meanwhile, George, who had been prolific in writing and trying to expose a lot of what was going on in prison, and had been schooling his younger brother, Jonathan Jackson, about conditions in prison. August 7th of that same year, 1970, there was an incident in Marin County Courthouse where three brothers were on trial. Actually, one was on trial and two were there for witnesses. You had James McClain, who was on trial, and William Christmas and Rochelle McGee, who came as witnesses to court. It was understood that George was supposed to be in court that day, but he wasn't. Rochelle McGee, so anyway, Jonathan entered into the courtroom, took over the courtroom, armed the brothers that were on trial or that were in the courtroom, and attempted to liberate his brother by taking the judge, the prosecutor, and the witnesses, a couple of jurors, hostage in exchange for the release of the Soledad brothers, who George, John, and Fleeta became known as. They were able to make it to the exit the court and made it into the van when the guards from San Quentin and the local police opened fire on the van, killing Jonathan, James McClain, William Christmas, and the judge. The DA was injured, and also Rochelle McGee suffered injuries. Harold, who will come up later, will give a lot more details about Rochelle St. Q. McGee. That incident happened August 7th of 1970. A year later, August 21st, 1971, they claimed there was an attempt by Comrade George, to escape from the Adjustment Center in San Quentin, and it led to brothers taking over the Adjustment Center, and George Jackson was murdered on that day, almost a year to the day that his brother was murdered. Out of that incident, there were several brothers who were charged with being involved with that takeover in the Adjustment Center, and they became known as San Quentin Six. You had Sundiata, Willie Sundiata Tate. You had David Giap Johnson, Ugo Yogi Panel, Larry Spain, Fleeta Drumgo, who was one of the original Soledad brothers, and Louis Bato Talamentes. They were charged with being involved with that incident. All of them either took a deal or they were exonerated of that. Of those 6 brothers, 2 of them are now deceased. One is Peter Drumgo. The other was Ugo Yogi Panel, who actually spent the next 46 years in solitary confinement, 51 years total, and later was released from solitary confinement. And 2 weeks after his release, he was viciously murdered by racist guards and prisoners, August 12, 2015. We go up to, fast forward to August 1st, 1978. One of the architects of Black August, one of the 2 architects, one being Shujar Graham, who spent 7 years on death row, and Jeffrey Katari Gaulden. Jeffrey Katari Gaulden suffered an injury on the prison yard in AC in San Quentin, didn't receive the necessary medical attention that was needed, and he died from his wound, which happened August 1st, 1978. So if you see the pattern, a lot of what occurred during the month of August. We bring the incident in Soledad Owayne into the month of August, and it's commemorated August 13th. That laid the foundation for the following year when we began to commemorate these brothers, and not just them, but others who gave up their lives, who sacrificed their lives for other prisoners to deal with the conditions that they had to live up under, and their lives were taken from us. So that began the practice of Black August the following year in August 1979. One of the things that we always do, but we intensify during the month of August, is we study. We fast, similar to Ramadan, from sun to sundown on particular days, August 1st, August 7th, August 13th, and August 21st. We do a 24-hour fast, and we refer to those as the flea days to acknowledge those, the ultimate sacrifice that those comrades made. Flea standing for First Liberation Expedition Africa. This is the 42nd year of our commemoration, and it's the 50th year of the anniversary of the assassination of Comrade George. That's an overview. Other than studying fast, we also train and we fight. Whenever we can, we get into pairs and do whenever we are allowed to come together in somewhat in a secretive way. And if we got a cellie, we would train with that cellie. We would learn how to fight so that if we have to come against other prisoners, which has happened a lot of times when your cell, you're in solitary confinement, your cell actually opens up and other prisoners are outside your cell. And so you got to deal with that situation. So that's kind of like an overview of what we do. This is a condition that this is a tradition that will continue on until we liberate. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother G2. Thank you so much. In addition to what G2 was talking about in terms of Black August, there's a lot of other significant days that take place in the month of Black August that we also acknowledge and tribute to those who resisted against injustice. August the 16th is Marcus Garvey's birthday. We give acknowledgement to him. The Haitian Revolution was won in the month of August. David Walker had a rebellion, August the 21st. There's so many things that the Watts Rebellion was in August. And so when we talk about Black August, in addition to giving particular acknowledgement to those brothers behind the wall who sacrificed their lives for improving better conditions inside the prisons, and also for standing for our people and against injustices. There are a whole other list of resistances that have taken place from the entire time we've been here that we also give acknowledgement to in the month of August, why we call it Black August. But thank you, Brother G2. We really appreciate, you giving that insight about Black August. And now we're going to move on to what we call the roll call of the martyrs. These are the names of brothers and sisters who gave their lives, who are no longer with us, that we want to always call their names and remember them. And Brother James Simmons is going to do that roll call. You're on mute. We can't hear you. You need to unmute.
So Weyusi Agosti Salamu, Black August greetings. I feel this is a very important part of what we do during Black August. Although we not only look at the past, we look to the future. There are so many of our people were martyred in the cause of liberation. So I would appreciate if the panelists would help out, because there are some easy ones and there's some difficult ones. When we talk about Nat Turner, Denmark Vesey, Gabriel Prosser, David Walker was assassinated for writing a pamphlet on the legitimacy of rising up against oppression. We have Marcus Garvey, who died in exile. We have Malcolm X, who was assassinated at the Audubon Ballroom. We have Zaid Malik Shakur, who was murdered in combat with New Jersey troopers. Soon the Mtiara Shabaka, who was murdered after helping to liberate Assata Shakur and an expropriation of funds from a Brinks truck. We have Fred Ahmad Evans, who fought and in Cleveland, Ohio, in what some people call the first case of urban guerrilla warfare in 1968 in Cleveland, Ohio. We have Mark Essex, who was atop the Howard Johnsons and fought off 500 police and military and vigilantes, and was only stopped when a Marine helicopter was taken from a Marine base and they fired 50 caliber rounds at him. We have Lumumba Shakur, who was assassinated, a member of the Black Panther Party and the Black Liberation Army. Zaid Malik Shakur, who again assassinated while traveling with Assata Shakur. You have James Carr, who was killed. Captain Franco, who was killed. Bunchy Carter, Al Prentice Bunchy Carter, who along with John Huggins was killed at UCLA in an FBI-inspired plot. Fred Hampton and Mark Clark killed in Chicago, assassinated in Chicago, while Fred Hampton, drugged by a police agent, was sleeping. Martin Luther King, and so many others. So if I can get some help for those who I have missed,
think you covered a lot of them, Comrade. Of course, there, we talk about those that martyred like Sandra Bland. It's quite a few. The list is really long.
Yes. And could go on to infinity, including those names too numerous to mention, says Comrade Asada. Those who died at the bottom of the ocean would rather end their lives than to submit to a life of slavery. So let their memory be cherished. Let their spirit fill us with the spirit of resistance. Thank you.
Thank you, James. We appreciate that roll call. And we want to always remember that we are where we are today because people have given with their blood, they've given with their time, their energy, and that we're standing on the shoulders of many, many people. So we must always remember, particularly those sisters and brothers who are still behind bars, but particularly those who have laid down their lives for the freedom and the liberation of our people. That roll call is very dear and precious to us, and we need to make sure that every day, that we acknowledge, why we're here. Thank you so much, James. Appreciate that roll call and those who contributed. Now we're going to move on to Sister Tanja Edwards, who is going to do a song that's called Ella's Song. Ella Baker was a dynamite woman who helped to organize many of the SNCC Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, I don't want to say events, but actions that took place. And this song is dedicated to her. Tanja, we need to get you in here. Go to Tanja. We're going to hear a song again called Ella's Song, We Who Believe in Freedom. Tanja, you need to open your camera. Give us just a minute.
The mic.
You got your mic?
Yes. Thank you. I really appreciate you asking me to sing this song. I learned a lot. I never knew about this song. A lot of people don't know about this song. Her words were very important. And they just put them all in the song. And people all over the world are singing this song. Just, I want to thank you for showing me this song. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest till it comes. Until the killing of black men, black mother's son, is as important as killing a white man, white mother's son. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest till it comes. The older I I get, the better I know that the secrets of my going on is better in the hands of the young who dare to run against the storm. To me, young people come first. They have the courage where we fail. And if I can but shed some light on them as they carry us through the gale. Struggling myself don't mean a whole lot. I've come to realize that teaching others to stand up and fight is the only way my struggle survives. I'm a woman who speaks in a voice, and I must be heard. At times I can be quite difficult. I'll bow to no man's word. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Not needing the clutch for power, not needing the light just to shine on me. I need to be one in the number as we stand against tyranny. Oh, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Oh, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes.
Thank you, Sister Tanja. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Really appreciate that. And so those of us that know, what it feels like, and I think we all know we're so a lot of times just inundated with this. But we can't rest. We can't rest until we have freedom, until we know our sisters and brothers are released, until they have justice, until we as a people have justice. So we just have to keep standing, and like Sister Ella Baker said, we cannot rest until freedom comes. Thank you so much, sister, and on with Black August. We're going to be doing this until we have the victory, until victory is won. Okay, so next on, we are going to have give you an opportunity to join us in terms of supporting our sisters and brothers behind bars. Sister Virginia is going to come on and give you a list of names of people who you can support and encourage while they're in prison. And I'm going to just step off here and let Sister Virginia go ahead and get started.
Greetings. I have put on the screen, and I hope you can see it, a list of comrades currently housed in the California prison system. And the letter writing campaign that Black August conducts for these comrades is the Baobab tree. It's the tree of life. It's a tree that is indigenous to Africa. It is a deciduous tree in that the leaves drop off, but it's also a succulent in that during rainy seasons, it soaks up all the water that it can, and then it is able to produce fruit. during the dry seasons. And that's kind of what happens when we keep in touch with our comrades that are housed in the California prison system or any of the prison systems in the United States. Prisons are typically located far outside of the neighborhoods where these folks grew up or came from. And part of the reason for that is to cut them off from their families and from their comrades, from their lifestyles. So we try to keep in touch with them by writing letters to them. And it's something that we encourage. That is another way that you can participate with Black August, is by writing letters to the comrades whose names and addresses are listed on the screen. One of the, two of the methods that you can use to write, one is you can send a regular letter within an envelope, or you can send a postcard. A lot of prisons and detention centers are leaning toward postcard communications, which we don't encourage because postcards limit what can be said, and also postcards reveal exactly what your communication is with that person. If you do use an envelope, it is suggested that you do not seal the envelope when you put it in the mail, and make sure that you use your upper left-hand corner for the return address, upper right-hand corner if the envelope is facing you, for the stamp to be placed there. What we want you to write about when you're writing to folks is to write about happy things that are happening in your life, happy things that are happening in your community, happy uplifting events that are occurring. Suppose you were taking a class at a university and obtained your degree. That's a happy occurrence that can be shared. Maybe you just got married or became engaged or had children, had a baby. Maybe you went someplace that you've never been before. You can write about that place. You went to the Grand Canyon. You went to Vancouver, British Columbia. Write about those things. Write about them in detail and really describe how green it is in Vancouver and how it just rains all of a sudden. Those kinds of things that can give someone a visual of something outside of the walls of the prison that they're in, and also give them hope that they might one day be able to see those, because we're fighting to get them free. Do not write about Black August. Don't write about George Jackson. Don't write about guerrillas. You could write about big, hairy guerrillas, but don't write about revolutionary guerrillas. Don't write about the revolution or George Jackson, Jonathan Jackson, Qatari Galden. Don't write about the jihad. Don't write about killing pigs, which are killing police. Don't write about the Taliban, Afghanistan. Be careful about using language other than English, such as Swahili. Don't refer to revolutionary organizations such as the Weather Underground or the Black Panther Party or the Black Guerrilla Family. Those kinds of mentions or mentioning those names, those people, those organizations could cause the person who's receiving your letter to be placed in solitary confinement. They could be beaten by the guards. They could have some of their privileges taken away. One of the privileges that could be taken away is your right or their right to receive letters. So we want to be very careful, write uplifting information, happy things that would make someone feel that there is hope, and be very careful not to write about anything that would cause them to come under suspicion or to be penalized or have retribution brought against them. So these are the names on the screen. I hope everybody had a chance to see them, and I'm about to take them down now.
You need to bring them up. They're not up.
Oh, I thought I did. I'm sorry.
And give a few minutes for them people to see it.
Okay, I thought I did. There they are. There they are. And let's see, I thought I did. Okay, there they are. So as I said, write these comrades, choose anyone. And one of the things I mentioned in our program earlier this week is that if you do decide to write someone, if in my case, I was writing to someone and personal issues came up for me, then I stopped writing, but I never let the person know that I was having issues and I didn't write for over a year, almost a year. And because callously, I guess on my part, and I think it was callously on my part, I figured that the person would be there. So when I was ready to start writing again, I found out he had died. So if you're going to write someone, continue writing them. If for any reason you need to stop writing them, let them know that you're going to stop writing for a while. And that way they won't be looking forward to your correspondence. So our tree of life for these comrades is writing to them, keeping in touch, letting them know the things that are changing in society. Computers, computer upgrades, new cars. There are all kinds of things that are uplifting that can be written about and that can keep someone in touch with things that are advancing in society.
Virginia,
Yes.
is it possible for people to take a screenshot of that?
Can people take a screenshot?
Yeah, I don't know
People
if it's
can-
possible.
Yeah, people can take a screenshot.
Yes.
That way they can capture it all.
Yes.
Right.
So yeah, anyone's welcome to take a screenshot.
So we're gonna give like maybe another 20 seconds for people to try to, if they want to write it, or to take a screenshot. And then the other thing is, if you don't get all the information, just send us your email and request it, and we'll make sure you get it. Put your email in the, if you're on, okay, you won't be able to.
They could always request it on either Instagram or Facebook.
Okay. All righty. So we want to
I'm going to
thank
stop
you.
the share. Okay.
Thank you, Sister Virginia.
You are so
We
welcome.
appreciate you sharing that list, and want to again encourage people to let them know we have not forgotten them, that they are very important to us, and that we want to do everything that we can to kind of give them the kind of support that they could use at this time. So thank you again, Virginia.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. And we're now going to move on to Brother Harold, who is going to talk even more about Black August commitment and support. Again, I mentioned this is the month that we fortify ourselves, we rededicate ourselves, and we really look to how we sustain ourselves in order to be able to continue to do this work, so that we never, ever, stop the fight to free our sisters and brothers, from political tyranny. So Brother Harold, I want you to come on now and talk about Black August commitment and support. Thank you.
Thank you, Asada. Greetings, comrades and friends. Who is Rochelle McGee, and why Q? Q was kidnapped and captured along with other compatriots and comrades from Sierra Leone in the early 1800s. The captured human souls led a rebellion, took over the ship, and because they didn't understand certain navigations, they were not able to go back to Sierra Leone. They were captured by the settlers here in the United States, the European settlers. They went to court at different levels, all the way up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court of that time said that Sen-Q and his compatriots had a right to rebel. That was the Supreme Court of the so-called United States. Rochelle Sen-Q McGee. Who is he? Well, if you've heard of Angela Davis, if you've heard of Free Angela Davis and all political prisoners, then it must be said that Rochelle and Angela Davis were charged with the same alleged crimes: conspiracy to murder, and aggravated kidnapping. Because of the large mass movement of Free Angela Davis in 1970, 71, 72, she was acquitted of all charges. I always like to say our soldier comrade left behind with the same charges. He had to go through 2 trials. The first trial, the jurors were divided on the conspiracy to murder and murder. They were 11-1 to acquit him on the kidnapping charge. So there was another trial. And at this second trial, he was acquitted on the murder and conspiracy to murder, and 11-1 to convict on the kidnapping charge. The judge put pressure on Rochelle McGee to cop to or plead guilty to the lesser charge of kidnapping. So he did plead guilty against his will. And understand that a lot of what Rochelle McGee did in terms of the legal aspect of his cases were of his work. He's considered a brilliant, I don't like to say jailhouse lawyer, he's considered a brilliant lawyer. He has defended not only himself in different petitions and briefs filed to different courts, all the way up to the Supreme Court. Rochelle has defended other prisoners in the ship that does not have a cell, the slave ship that does not have a cell, the new slave ships, prisons across the country, massive incarceration. Rochelle McGee was born in Frankington, Louisiana in 1939. When Rochelle McGee was 16 years old. Testimony that was never presented to the jury in the Louisiana trial because Blacks were not allowed to make statements in court at that time in 1963 when the case occurred. No, 1955, August 1955, the same month, Emmett Till was tortured and murdered. The people that could not testify, they were going to testify that in fact, Rochelle McGee was going with or seeing a 22-year-old white woman who was married. He was charged with attempted rape of this white woman. He was sent to the slave camp known as Angola. It was a former slave camp. He did 7 years in the slave camp. He was paroled after 7 years to Los Angeles, California. When he came to Los Angeles, California in 1963, he and his cousin were at a club. Ironically, what is now known as King Boulevard in Western is a club. There was a club there. And his cousin and him were charged with kidnapping for robbery of a $10 bag of marijuana. Rochelle went to 2 trials at least on that particular case. and he was convicted and sent to prison with a 7 to life, meaning 7 years and possibly a life sentence. And G2 ran, talked about the August 7th revolt. We go into this about the August 7th revolt. Rochelle McGee, who was on the witness stand during the August 7th revolt, when Jonathan said, those that want to go, come with me. But you got to understand, Rochelle, all the different legal, racist, institutional, racist, Ku Klux Klan type of trials that he went to. I mean, hey, man, a young comrade came in with some guns. He said, yeah, I want to go. So CNQ, through the 51 years, has maintained that, in fact, based on the original case of CNQ and Tume, that he had a right to rebel without going through all the details of his trials, his petition. It's a very strong legal argument that Rochelle is waging. I want to add that we created an organization called the Coalition to Free Rochelle McGee. Our website is Free Rochelle McGee, RUCHELL, first name Rochelle, McGee, MAGEE. We've been in communications with the Comrade. We've also had meetings with 2 different governmental whatever. That would be the governor's legal staff, which we haven't heard anything from them. And the district attorney down here, we've had meetings, we being the Coalition to Free Rochelle McGee, and we haven't heard anything from them. But we are still moving. We have a petition that's circulating right now on change.org. And we have over 31,000 petition signatures to free Rochelle. We also have close to 1,200 signatures and letters to free Rochelle McGee that go straight to the governor's office, Governor Newsom. In addition, we have found out that Rochelle possibly, more than likely, is on a walker. If you have a man that's now 82 years old, 82 years old, and he was denied parole July the 15th of this year, 2021. Now let's go to August 27th, 2021. The man that was accused of killing Robert F. Kennedy, the senator, John Kennedy's brother, was granted parole in San Diego. This man was granted parole. I think he's been down 54 years. Now, this still has to go through some processes to see if it's going to be finalized, and he's to see if he's going to be granted parole and out. But again, we have our comrade, the soldier left behind, 82 years old. And I hate to say this word, but he is not a threat. From all of what we've gathered, Rochelle has been a model prisoner, and we don't want to happen to Rochelle what happened to Romaine Chip Fitzgerald, who was the longest political prisoner in time of the Black Panther Party, who was murdered by medical prisoner neglect. So again, our website is Free Rochelle McGee, Rochelle, RUCHELL last name McGee, M-A-G-E-E. Right on, in solidarity. Free them all, free all political prisoners.
Thank you, Harold. Free all political prisoners. You know, as we're talking, one of the things that we have to remember why, you know, a lot of these little petty crimes that have been committed, where people get these long sentences, is that, you know, we're dealing with a prison industrial complex. That prison industrial complex needs to be fed constantly in order to maintain its relationships with these corporate businesses who are benefiting from the labor of our sisters and brothers who are locked behind bars. So you have somebody, you know, steal a piece of cheese, maybe because they were hungry, and they get 15 years. You know, these are some of the things that we need to really deal with as we look at this whole prison industrial complex that exists here in this country. That America is one of the largest prison systems in the world. And a lot of it has to do with just this wanting to feed it to make profit off of us. So slavery is not over. In addition to the whole political effort to suppress any type of resistance to the oppression that we're facing on a daily basis. So thank you, Brother Harold. And we really want to encourage people to support Brother Rochelle McGee and all political prisoners, free all political prisoners. Thank you, Brother Harold. And now we have next, we have a poem. Sister Mzuri Pambeli is going to do of the Pan-African Women's Day, organizer of Pan-African Women's Day. And she's going to give you a little history about this poem, one of our sisters who is in political exile. Sister Mzuri.
Revolutionary greetings, comrades. And once again, very proud to be a part of Black August LA and be a part of our closing program. I'm going to do the poem called The Tradition. And you will find this poem, it's written by Sister Assata Shakur in the book Assata. So it's one of the critical readings that everyone serious about our people and serious about our struggle. Get this book, it's in the back. So you'll find this, but just studying and reading about her history and her contribution to the movement is critical. And I just want to read a few words in her own words about who she is. For us, we know Assata as a revolutionary that is still on the front lines of the struggle, although she is in Cuba, but she has always been a part of the struggle. Sister Assata Olubala Shakur has always been for the people. In her own words, I am a 20th century escaped slave. Because of the government persecution, I was left with no choice than to flee from the political repression, racism, and violence that the dominant US government's policy towards people of color. I am an ex-political prisoner and have been living in exile in Cuba since 1984. I have been a political activist most of my life. And although the US government has done everything in its power to criminalize me, I am not a criminal, nor have I ever been one. In the 1960s, I participated in various struggles as a part of the student movement. I participated in the Black Liberation Movement. I participated in a movement to end the Vietnam War. I joined the Black Panther Party in 1969 and became which became one of the #1 organizations targeted by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI's COINTEL program. And that's the counterintelligence program that we know persecuted and imprisoned so many of our political prisoners that we have today. It persecuted and criminalized and made sure that it locked down all of the revolutionaries in our movement, all of the activists in our movement, and it continues to work in that same fashion today. She says that because of the Black Panther Party's demand that the total liberation of Black people be free, that we be free, J. Edgar Hoover of the FBI said that the Black Panther Party was the greatest threat to internal security in the country and vowed to destroy it and its leaders and its activists. So on May 2nd, 1973, the Black Panther activist Assata Shakur was pulled over by the New Jersey State Police, shot twice, and then charged with murder of a police officer. Assata spent 6.5 years in prison under brutal circumstances before escaping a maximum security wing of Clinton Correctional Facility for Women in New Jersey in 1979 and moved to Cuba. So for that, we understand her background, her struggle, which is a part of our struggle. And so this message that she writes is about us continuing the struggle because the struggle isn't over. And one additional thing I just want to also make sure that we know is that we need to support Assata. This imperialist country, this imperialist and capitalist government is still trying to exile her or force her to be brought back and thrown back in prison. So we have to support Assata and fight against all legal and illegal actions by this U.S. imperialist government to try to bring her or any of our comrades back to serve time. We need to support Cuba. We say hands off Assata, hands off Cuba in the embargo against Cuba, because Cuba has been one of the best friends to African revolutionaries all over the world and have brought us in and took good care of us in Cuba. And so we want to make sure that we also support Cuba. So make sure that if you see any activity around supporting Assata, around supporting Cuba, please make sure you're a part of that. And that's a part of also carrying on the tradition. So just reading from Sister Assata's poem, we say, carry it on now. Carry it on now, carry it on, carry on the tradition. There were Black people since the childhood of time who carried it on. In Ghana and Mali and Timbuktu, we carried on the tradition. We hid in the bush when the slave master came holding a spear, and when the moment was ripe, leaped out and lanced the lifeblood of that would-be master. We carried it on the slave ships, hurling ourselves into oceans, slitting the throats of our captors. We took their whips and their ships. Blood flowed in the Atlantic, and it wasn't all ours. We carried it on. We fed Missy arsenic apple pies, stole the axes from their shed, went and chopped off Massa's head. We ran, we fought, we organized a railroad underground. We carried it on. In newspapers, in meetings, in arguments, in street fights, we carried it on. In tales told to children, in chants and cantatas, in poems and blues songs and saxophone screams, we carried it on. In classrooms and churches, in courtrooms, in prisons, we carried it on. On soapboxes and picket lines, welfare lines, unemployment, we lived on the line. We carried it on. In sit-ins and pray-ins, march-ins and die-ins, we carried it on. In cold Missouri midnights, pitting shotguns against lynch mobs on burning Brooklyn streets, pitting rocks against rifles, we carried it on. Against water hoses and bulldogs, against nightsticks and bullets, against tanks and tear gases, needles and nooses, bombs and birth control, we carried it on. In Selma and San Juan, Mozambique, Mississippi, Brazil, and Boston, we carried it on. on. Through the lies and the sellouts, the mistakes and the madness, through pain and hunger and frustration, we carried it on the tradition, carried a strong tradition, carried a proud tradition, carried a Black tradition, carry it on. Pass it down to the children. Pass it down. Carry it on. Carry it on now. Carry it on to freedom. Let's carry on the tradition, y'all. Forward ever, backwards never. Ready for the revolution.
Yes.
Thank you, Sister Mzuri. Thank you for that very inspirational poem and words from Assata Shakur. And, you know, in line with that, you know, we have to continue to resist. We have to resist injustice. We are facing so many situations and conditions in our communities right now with gentrification, with lack of jobs, with COVID inequality, with inequality just generally. But we have to continue to stand up and we have to continue to resist injustice. So really appreciate, we have to carry it on, right on, okay? The very next thing that we're going to do is, you know, Black August is heavy on our hearts. It's heavy on our hearts because we know we are continually dealing with, you know, trauma, constant abuse, and we have to continue to keep standing up. But in the midst of all of that, we still have to find a way, you know, to balance that. We have to have moments where we de-stress a little bit, you know, moments where we have our moments where we laugh to keep from crying so we can stand back up again. And in that light, I want to bring on our next person who's going to tell you a story. You know, we have a strong tradition of storytelling that talks about all the different aspects of our life. And in that light, going to bring on James Simmons, known as Uncle James, the storyteller, you know, to kind of lighten things up a little bit for us before we leave tonight. James.
Greetings. Black August is truly a time to remember. It's also a time to inspire. Again, the deaths, the tortures, but there has always been resistance. We always carried it on. And even in our poetry from years ago, we have we carried on this tradition. So this was written by Sterling Brown. It's called The Ballad of Joe Meek. So you can't never tell how far a frog will jump when you just see him sitting on his big broad rump. Know what a monkey's thinking by the working of his jaws. You just can't figure it. And I knows because had me a buddy soft as a pie. Joe Meek, they called him, and they didn't lie. The good books say, turn the other cheek. But there wasn't no turning to my boy, Joe Meek. He turned up all parts and begged you to spank, pulled down his britches and supplied the plank. The worm that didn't turn was a rattlesnake to Joe. It wasn't scary, just meek, sir. Just made up, so. It was late in August, what they calls dog days, made even beetle hounds get bulldog ways. Would make a pet bunny chase a bad bloodhound, make a newborn baby slap his grandpa down. The air was muggy and heavy with heat. The people all sizzled like frying meat. The ice house was heaven and the pavements was hell. Even Joe didn't feel so agreeable. Strolling down Claiborne in the wrong end of town, Joe saw two policemen knock a poor gal down. He didn't know her at all, never saw her before. But that didn't make no difference to my old boy, Joe. Walks up to the cops and very polite asked them if they thought they had done just right. One cracked him with his billy above the left eye. One thugged him with his pistol and left him lying. When he woke up and knew what the cops had done, Joe went to a hock shop, got himself a gun. Felt more out of sorts than ever before, so he went on a rampage, my old boy Joe. Shot his way to the station house, rushed right in. Wasn't nothing but space where the cops had been. They called the reserves and the National Guard. Joe was in a cell overlooking the yard. The machine gun sputtered, didn't faze Joe at all. But every time he fired, a cop would fall. The tear gas made him laugh when they let it fly. Laughing gas made him hang his head and cry. He threw the hand grenades back with the outshoot drop, and every time he threw, there was one less cop. The chief of police said, "What kind of man is this?" and held up his shirt for armistice. "Stop gunning, black boy, and we'll let you go." "I thank you very kindly," said my old boy Joe. "We promise you safety if you leave us be." Joe said, "That's agreeable, sir, by me." The sun had gone down, the air was cool. Joe stepped out on the pavement, a fighting fool. Had walked from the jail about half a square when a cop behind a post let him have it fair. Pull a bullet in his left side and one in his thigh. But Joe didn't lose his shooting eye. Drew a cool bead on the cop's broad head. "I returns you your favor," and the cop fell dead. The next to last words he was heard to speak was just what you would look for from my boy Joe Meek. Spoke real polite to the folks standing by. "Would you please do me one kindness before I die? Won't be here much longer to bother you so. Would you bring me a drink of water before I go?" The very last words he was heard to say showed a different Joe talking in a different way. "If my bullets wasn't gone and my strength all spent, I'd send the chief something with a compliment, and we'd race to hell, and I'd best him there, like I would have done here if he'd played me fair. So you can't never tell how fast a dog can run when you see him asleeping in the sun."
Thank you, James. Thank you very much. These are the kinds of stories and poems that we need to help keep us strong, to help give us perspective about what's going on, and to remember, I mean, that we have not, as a people, been compliant. We have been resistant the whole time. Like I said, even say when you're looking at people who you think are asleep, we're paying attention, and we need to continue to pay attention, and we need to find the ways and the means to be able to express what our issues and our concerns are, and stay strong. Thank you, James, for sharing that story and reminding us that every dog lying ain't necessarily loafing, paying attention. And so we kind of lighten it up a little bit with that. And we want to thank everybody for being here with us this evening. We want to again pay special acknowledgement to all those sisters and brothers who are behind bars, that those of us on the other side of the wall, we remember you, we acknowledge you. We know that you've given your lives for us, for our people, and we remember you. We will always remember you. We will always stand up for you. We will always keep you in our hearts. Stay strong. We have to stay strong. Again, this is what this is about. Rededicating ourselves to that struggle, making ourselves strong mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, so that we are able to withstand and until the victory is won. Again, continuing the resistance until the victory is won. And we are now going to, I wanted to give the panelists maybe a final word, that if everybody wanted to just give one final word before we close out. And then we will go to our salute to the martyrs as we close out the program. Brother Lorenzo, I see you up. Do you have a final word for this evening?
I just wanted to say, give thanks for all the supporters, all the people on the ground that's doing the work. Give thanks for Black August Los Angeles, for all the work that you guys do. And I appreciate all of you. Give thanks for this program that we facilitated this evening for everyone. Ashe.
Ashe. Brother James Simmons. You have some final words?
Just that we do have to carry it on. We do, when I hear young people who are ignorant of the past, even old people, say, I am not my ancestors, because they think our ancestors were so weak that everyone submitted to slavery and segregation and degradation. And it's just not true. And Black August memorializes that, makes it important, and keeps us strong. All power to the people.
All power to the people. Sister Mzuri, you have some final words?
I have to follow up, with Uncle James, because I think it's important for us to know that change is possible, that we can be victorious. And so we need to not look towards the stars and the hip hop artists and all that revolution is made by the people. So when we say all power to the people, that means we, the people, have to be involved, and we need to encourage the next generation. That's one of the things, I consistently, am pushing to the youth. It's time to pass the baton, but we are here to help guide, to give the information, to give the love and support. But we're going to continue this struggle. And even if it skips a generation, we still going to be here to carry on that tradition. So as we say, let's keep moving forward ever, because we're going to be free.
Right on. Brother Harold.
I just want to read a passage.
Where's your camera?
A quick passage from Comrade George Jackson, August 9th, 1970. It was to his brother and mother. He said, go over all the letters I've sent to you in reference to Georgia, that's mom, being less than a perfect revolutionary mama, must be removed. Do it now. I want no possibility of anyone misunderstanding her as I did. She did cry. She did not cry a tear. She is, as I am, very proud. She read two things into his rage, love and loyalty. I can't go any further. It would be just a love story about the baddest brother this world has had the privilege to meet. And it is just not popular or safe to say I love him. Finally, George said, Cole, come through. All right, gentlemen, I'm taking over now. Revolution, George. That was Jonathan in the courtroom.
Right on. Thank you. Sister Virginia, you have some final words.
I wanted to say all power to the people. I know that Mzuri and James both spoke to my concern about young folks or folks in general thinking that our movement starts and stops. Our movement continues. It ebbs and flows. Sometimes it's great and there's action and lots of things are going on. Other times it's educating ourselves and preparing ourselves for the next assault. But our movement is not ending. It has never ended, and it will not end until we are free. All power to the people.
All power to the people. Okay, Brother G2 Siddiqui. Final words.
Yeah, I want to acknowledge all the comrades within California prisons and prisons across the country who are still resisting, still standing up and fighting. I want to acknowledge those that are part of organizations. And as Mzuri talks about, Comrade Mzuri talks about being part of organizations, whether it's Black August Los Angeles, African People's Revolutionary Party, Black August Organizing Committee, all those across the country and in other countries. I want to give acknowledgement to our comrade sister Afia Kwalia, who's in Ghana, who's continuing the tradition of Black August in Ghana. Other individuals that are not named, and to our young people who are stepping up, who are continuing that tradition, such as Cameron Hurt, Tiana, Tanja. These are people that are in the background that's working to continue this tradition. All power to the people and resistance forever. And
Right
as our
on.
comrade, my last words, as my comrade Fatih would say, when in the close of a lot of letters I got from him, either we win or we don't lose.
I heard that. Right on. All power to the people. Sister Tanja looks like she's gotten off. I wanted to give her a final word, but she's gone. But thank you so much, Sister Tanja, for singing Ella's song, We Who Believe in Freedom. And we look forward to having an opportunity to hear you again. And at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to move to our final presentation this evening. And it is a salute to the martyrs with STEM Pulse with a slide presentation, and we'll close out on that, give you a view of all of our panelists here this evening. And thank you so much for being here. And again, stand with us, stand up for our sisters and brothers behind bars, stand up for our people, stand up for truth and justice, and resist. Again, continuing the tradition of resistance until victory is won. And now we'll move to our slide presentation. Good night, and thank you for being here. Hold on for the slide presentation. Are we loading it? Are we loading the slide presentation? James? Give us a few minutes. I'm going to bring that to you. Here we go. I don't hear the music.
Standing tall on a mountain somewhere, don't care, letting out light shine. I said I believe that we gonna be free in my lifetime. Standing tall on a mountain somewhere, we'll share. Letting out light shine. I said I believe, and that the brothers holding back to the Lord. Yeah, and if you ain't blind, or you been taking this time, we was coming on strong. Yeah, strong. Brothers coming on strong. I said I believe black folks gon' get it together and walk a strong mile. on strong.